Rahim. Assalamu alaikum students. I hope you all are fine and must be busy with your work. And again class, today we will discuss a very important topic, that is project management, and we will discuss that what should be the different activities to be performed in project management. Okay students, in our today's class, again as I told you that we will discuss about the project management. We will define the project, that what are the characteristics of the project, and what is the difference between project and a program, that is also so important. Then we will define what is project management, and we will discuss the different tools and the techniques which the operations manager or the project manager can use in order to manage their projects. Then we will discuss some important methods and models on the basis of which the project manager or the operation manager can select the particular projects. Then we will also discuss the different steps in a project life cycle, that how the project starts and through what stages a project passes up to the termination of a particular project. Then students will also discuss the difference in the responsibilities of the project manager and the functional manager. Then there can be the different types of project organizations. We will also discuss about the different types and their relevant advantages and disadvantages. Then students, of course, we will discuss the importance and benefits of project management, that why it is necessary for the operations manager and the project manager in order to follow the different approaches and techniques to better manage their projects. Then in the end, we will also discuss some important causes which can lead a project to failure. So we will also discuss these important causes of failure of the different projects. So this is the brief outline, students, what we discuss in our today's class. So what is a project? A project is an investment activity. Now students, this definition is very important, that usually we say that a project is interrelated with that sort of investment, and sometimes we say that whenever there is an investment, we should have a project, and whenever we have a project we should require an investment. So in this way the project and the investment are interrelated with each other, and sometimes we define the project as it is an investment activity which is economically viable, technically sound, financially profitable, managerially efficient, socially acceptable, and institutionally desirable. So actually all of these factors relate to the different feasibilities of the project, that the project should be strong and it should be viable economically, financially, managerially, socially, culturally. So there are too many aspects we should have to see about a project. So we can also say that projects are the building blocks of an investment plan. So students, in this particular definition, we are relating the project to the investment activity, and always the different projects are related to any sort of investment activity, and we have to manage this investment activity in a way that it can serve our different objectives like economic objectives, technical objectives, financial objectives, managerial objectives, as well as the social objectives. So these objectives of the project are so important to be achieved at the end of the project. Students, we can also define project in this way, that it is a sequence of unique, complex and connected activities having one goal or purpose to be achieved within time, within budget, and according to the specification. Again students, this is a very important definition of project, and this definition actually tells us about the different characteristics of the project, and it also shows us that what are the different activities which are actually involved in a particular project, and which differentiates actually a project to a process or some procedure. So let's discuss this definition in detail. In this particular definition, there are some points which are so important, like project is the sequence of unique activities, complex activities, connected activities, having single goal or purpose, and to be achieved within time, within budget, and according to the specification. And sometimes we refer these three factors as the triple constraints of the project. So sometimes we say that every project has the triple constraints, that is the cost, budget, and quality. That is, it should be according to the specification, or it should meet the predetermined requirements of quality. So let's discuss this definition in detail. Now, what is meant by unique activities? The project is not the name of some simple activities or some repetitive activities. It is the name of always the unique activities. And sometimes we say about the projects that projects are never happened before, and the projects will never happen again under the same terms and conditions. So this is unique with respect to the project, that project always have the unique activities and non-repetitive activities, not very simple activities actually. Then project is composed of complex activities. Again, these are not the simple activities and not the repetitive activities or not the trivial activities, but this is the name of the complex activities and not the name of the daily activities or the routine activities. Then third important point, that the project is composed of interconnected activities. Now this interconnection between the activities is so important, and again we say about the project that the inputs of some of the activities are the outputs of some other activities, and the outputs of some other activities are the inputs of some other activities. So project is always composed of these interconnected activities. Again students, a project should always have a single goal and purpose to be achieved. Now this is the point which differentiates a project from the program. Program may have the different objectives or the purposes, but the project should ideally have a single goal or purpose to be achieved at the end of the project. So project should always have a single goal or purpose to be achieved. Then specified time, the project should always be completed within the specified time period. Then within budget, the project should always be completed within the prescribed budget, and the resources should be efficiently utilized in achieving the objectives of the project. And again, according to the specification, that is, the project should meet the requirements of the quality and the customer requirements. So these are referred as the triple constraints of the project, that the project should be completed within time, within budget, and according to the specification and according to the customer requirements. So student, this is a very important definition of project, and as we said that project should always be completed within time, within budget, and according to the specification. But students, if you see the different projects in Pakistan or outside Pakistan, there are rare projects which are completed 100% within time, within budget, or 100% according to the specification which have been defined at the benchmarking or the planning stage. Now still we call them projects. The reason is, when the project starts, it has a particular life cycle, and suppose that after 4 months there is an uncertain event which you were not expecting. So after that particular event, what the project manager or the operations manager should do, he should have revised all of his benchmarks related to the time, related to the budget, and related to the specification, so that they may have some modified benchmarks. So this is very important, that throughout the life cycle of the project manager and the operation manager should have the review of all the different benchmarks, especially related to the time, related to the budget, and related to the specification or quality. So that's why we say that a project actually completes within time, within budget, and according to the specification. Then students, program. A program is different from a project. Programs are larger in scope and comprise multiple projects, As I said, that projects always have a unique purpose, have a single purpose to be achieved at the end of the project, but program may have more than one purposes. And sometimes we say that program is composed of many projects. And if you see the hierarchy in the project organizations, you can see that the program manager is at the top, and under that program manager there may be the different project managers. So a program may be composed of more than one projects, and that is larger in scope than that of the project. So in this way we can differentiate between the project and program. So the students, again, as I told you, that it is very important for the different projects that these projects should be completed within the specified cost, within the predetermined time, and the resources in order to achieve the different objectives of the project should be optimally utilized. So these again are the three important parameters to be achieved for the different projects. And again, when we evaluate the different projects, and the success of the different projects actually depends on the efficient achievement of the project objectives. With respect to all of these parameters, that is, we will have to see that whether we are being able to achieve the project objectives according to our estimated cost, or whether we are achieving the objectives within the prescribed time period, and how much resources are to be utilized in order to achieve the objectives of the project. So these three are the different parameters of the project, and again, for every project we'll have to see that how much we are being able to achieve the objectives related to these important parameters of the project. Then students, you can see this triangle. Again, we are talking about the three constraints or three parameters, that is the cost, budget, time, and resources. And again, these three factors, that is time, cost, and resources, actually determine the scope and the quality of the project. Whenever we want to have a sort of trade-off between the scope and quality of the project, we will have to have a trade-off between these three parameters or the factors of the project. So these three factors, that is cost, time, and resources, actually define the scope of the project, breadth and the domain of the project, as well as the quality of the project. Students, projects can be classified in many ways. One of the classification we can make for the projects is the social sector projects and infrastructure projects. And again, the transportation projects involve the construction of the different highways, then airports. Similarly, as far as the utilities, and especially public utilities, are concerned, electric power projects, telephone installment projects. And education wise, if we see the different projects, the construction of the different schools and colleges are the examples of the different projects. Similarly, if we talk about the public safety, the police related projects, then fire brigades installation and the related projects. Similarly, recreational activities like building of parks, playgrounds, then development projects like irrigation, development of dams, and research projects, health related projects, and agriculture, space projects. In defense projects, you can have the different military equipment projects and the related system projects. So all these are the different types of the projects. So if we broadly divide these different projects, we can divide them in the two broad categories, that is the social sector projects and infrastructure projects. Social sector projects have the objectives of for a particular society to be achieved, and infrastructure projects objective is to provide the infrastructure to the industry, to the citizens, and so this is the way we can have the classification of the different projects. So students, after defining the project, and after we have discussed that what are the important characteristics of a project, we'll have to define that what is the project management, and we can define the project management as the scientific application of modern tools and techniques. Now again, students, this scientific application is so important. You must remember in our very beginning lectures I told you about the importance of scientific decisions, and how we can make the decisions on the basis of the certain facts and figures. So that is the more scientific decision, and if we are making the decisions on the basis of the certain observations or the experience, so that decision will have least importance, because there may be the biasness in these sort of decisions. So project management actually involves the scientific application of the different modern tools and techniques in planning, organizing, staffing, directing, financing, controlling, reporting, budgeting the different unique activities or tasks in order to achieve the particular goal or objective within the triple constraints of the project, that is time, cost and quality. So this is the definition of the project, that will have to apply the different tools. Of course, we will discuss in our today's lecture that what are these tools which can be used for all their planning, organizing, staffing purposes, and the scientific application of all of these tools in order to manage the different activities of the unique projects, so that we can achieve our predetermined objectives within the triple constraints of the project, again time, cost and quality. So this is the project management. Again, the art of using management tools and skills for managing and controlling the company resources for a given investment activity. So again, students, as I told you that projects are directly related to an investment activity, and we say that projects are the building blocks of an investment activity actually. So we'll have to use the different management tools and skills in order to manage and control the different company resources. Now again, students, this is very important, that in order to achieve the predetermined objectives of the project, we'll have to utilize the organizational resources optimally and efficiently and effectively, so that we can achieve our desired accomplishments or goals and objectives within time, within budget, and according to the requirements of the customers and according to the predetermined specification. So this is another very important definition of project management. As you can see from this definition, that project management actually includes all the activities of the management, that is planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, budgeting, financing, related to the project, so that we can achieve our predetermined objectives. Students, there are some tools and techniques we usually use in managing our projects. The most important tool is PERT CPM, that is Program Evaluation Review Technique, and Critical Path Method Technique. In today's lecture or in next lecture, we will discuss this particular technique in detail. PERT is actually a network technique in which we formulate a sort of network which defines the interconnection between the different activities of the project. And again, after discussing the different steps of per technique, I told you that how we will be able to draw all the activities of the project in the form of a network or in the form of a diagram, and that diagram will help us to find out the critical path method, that is what is the longest period of the completion of the project, and that will actually be the optimum time period within which we can achieve our projects. And again, this CPM method will also guide us about the most critical activities of the project. Another important technique we can use in project management, that is the linear responsibility charts. Linear responsibility charts are the different charts which helps us to assign the different jobs to the different human resources within the organization by using the different legends or by using the different graphical or tabular techniques, so that everyone in the organization may have the idea that what to report and whom to report. Then again, Gantt charts tells us about the different activities in the form of a chart, that at what particular time period the certain activity of the project will start, at what time period it will be ended. Then work breakdown structures again is a very important tool we can use in project management, which helps us to break down the overall work into the task, into the different activities, then into the subtasks, so that we can assign the different resources accordingly for the different work patterns in the organization. JERT is another technique which is abbreviated as a graphical evaluation review technique, and this is a graphical technique again to review the different projects. Then students, there are different project management softwares available in the market which can always help us to apply all of these different tools in order to better manage the projects. One of the important project management software available in the market is the MS Project, and this is a very important software which can always help you people to apply the different project management activities, and of course it guides us to better manage the projects in your organizations. Okay, students, project selection models. Project selection models actually guides us about the different methods which can be used by the different project managers in order to decide about the particular projects, and in order to select that which project should be carried out by the organization and which project should not be carried out. There are two broad models or methods which are used in order to select the different projects, and one is the non-numeric models. As you can see from its name, that it is non-numeric, and that is not based on some numerical values or some calculations, but it is based on the judgment or the experience or the observations of the experts or the project managers or the operations managers. So this is a qualitative technique which can be used in order to select the different projects. There is another broad category and method which can be helpful in selecting the different projects, and this is referred as numeric models of the projects. Now again, numeric models is the quantitative technique for the selection of the different projects, in which we can use the different mathematical, financial or statistical calculations in order to select the different projects. So let's discuss the different methods which we can use in non-numeric models. The first method we can use is the sacred cow. The sacred cow means the top management in any organization will decide about the selection of the particular project, and whatever is being decided by the top manager or the chief executive of the organization, that will be carried out as a project. So sacred cow is a sort of method for the selection of the projects, in which the top manager or the executive will have the authority for the selection of the particular project. The second method is the operating necessity. Now students, in this particular method or model, sometimes it becomes the operating necessity to initiate the particular projects in the organizations. अगर कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कोई प्रोजेक्ट्स इनिशिएट नहीं करेगी, तो इट मीन्स दे कैन नॉट बी ऑपरेटेड मोर इन फ्यूचर. सो समटाइम्स इन ऑर्डर टू फुलफिल द ऑपरेटिंग कैपेसिटी एंड ऑपरेटिंग नेसेसिटी for their products and services, they will have to carry out the different projects. So if any organization is being faced in this sort of situation, and that is the operating necessity, they of course will carry out the different projects. The third method, again this is the qualitative method we are talking about for the selection of the different projects, is the competitive necessity method. In competitive necessity method, students, the project manager will compare your own operations and projects with respect to your competitors, and accordingly they may find it feasible that they should carry out the different projects in order to be competitive in the market. So in order to meet the particular competitive requirement, the managers or the organizations will have to carry out and will have to select the different projects. The next method is the product line extension method. Students, this is again the qualitative method for the selection of the different projects. In this particular method, again, mostly the different organizations are interested in the extension of their products and the product lines. In order to make this modification or extension in their products and product lines, they will have to carry out the different projects. So this sort of method in which the projects are being performed or carried out to extend the different products and product lines in the organization, that method may be referred as the product line extension method. Then again, the next method is comparative benefit model. Again, students, in order to have the comparative benefits with respect to the different competitors, the organizations may carry out the different projects. So again, students, all of these methods are related to the qualitative judgments about the selection of the different projects, and these are the different factors, or these are the different methods which can be used by the organization in order to select a particular project. But the most important method for the project selection are these numeric methods or quantitative methods. Now, one of the factors which can be used in order to select the different projects is the payback period. Now again, payback period is a sort of financial parameter which can help us in the selection of the different projects. Payback period is actually the time period in which the capital investment of the project is being recovered after the generation of the different revenues. So on the basis of payback period, we can always select a particular project among the number of the different projects. Then again, we can always use the method of NPV and benefit cost ratio, that is BCR ratio, in order to select the projects. In our next lecture, we will use these particular methods, that is NPV, net present value, and cost benefit ratio, and I will tell you that how we can use these particular methods in order to decide a particular project among the different alternative projects. And of course, in this NPV method and benefit cost ratio method, we use the discounting method in order to compute these particular values. Then another parameter which can be helpful for the selection of the different projects is IRR, that is internal rate of return, and this is a rate of return which helps us to equate the different aggregated discounted benefits and aggregated discounted cost. And again, class, we will discuss this particular aspect as well when we will discuss the financial analysis of the different projects. So these are the different important methods or parameters which can always be used by the different project managers in order to select the particular project. So students, sometimes we also define the projects as that the project is something which always have a starting point and which always have a ending point. The project life cycle consists of the different steps. Now among these steps are the conception and the selection of the projects. Now this step is very important. Now in this particular step, we have just discussed that the project manager will see that what particular method they can use in order to select the different projects. They can use the qualitative method, or they can also use the quantitative method for the selection of the different projects. Then the next step is planning, project planning. Again, in the project planning, you'll have to define out the roadmap, that from where to start and how to do up to the end of the project. Then again, implementation is important. We'll have to implement the project. Then again, we'll have to control the project, and we'll have to find out the deviation between the actual performance and the desired performance, and again we'll have to take the corrective actions, that how we can make the improvement in future. Then finally the project evaluation is also important, and that will guide us that how much we are able to achieve the predetermined objectives of the projects. And at the end the projects are finally terminated. So these are all the different steps involved in the project life cycle. The most important step, students, in the project management is project planning. And again you know very well about the planning, that project planning is actually a projective course of action in order to achieve the predetermined objectives of the organization. That is, it is a complete roadmap to go from the starting point to the ending point of the project. And the project planning is a rational determination of how to initiate, sustain and terminate a project. So this is very important, that project planning defines the clear roadmap and rational determination that how we should initiate, sustain and terminate the project. Then again the project planning starts with a clear vision, that is the ability to see something that is invisible to others. So there should always be a vision before the organizations and before the project managers, that what are the long-term objectives they want to achieve at the end of this project. So this is very important, that you should have a long-term roadmap, that how you can achieve the different predetermined objectives. So again class, 5 W's, as you may have learned about the planning, that what to do, when to do, how it will be done, why it should be done. That is so important in that planning, and project planning actually gives us the answers for all of these questions. At the planning stage, students, there is also another very important point, that we can make the different benchmarks right at the planning stage, so that when the project is started and is progressed in the future, we can compare the actual performance of the projects with respect to these benchmarks, which should have been made at the planning stage. So this is again one of the importance of that project planning. Now, what are the other important points related to the project planning? Project planning also helps us to eliminate or reduce the uncertainty. Now students, this is a very important point, that the basic purpose of planning is actually to reduce the uncertainty, and with the help of planning we actually can make our future more safe. So the basic purpose of planning is to reduce the risk and uncertainty for the future. And again, there are two thoughts about the planning. One school of thought is that you should immediately start the project and let's see what happens in the future. And there is another school of thought that you should be very careful while you are planning for a project, and you should give the proper time for the project planning, so that you will be able to better manage the different activities in future. And this second school of thought, students, is always right, that we should give the due importance to the project planning, because that will always help us to reduce the risk and uncertainty related to the different projects in future. So project planning actually helps us to improve the efficiency of the different operations, and it also helps us to understand the objectives attainment, that how we can achieve the predetermined objectives of the project in an efficient and in effective manner. Then again, as I told you, that this project planning always provides a basis for monitoring and controlling work. So that's why it is always recommended to prepare the different benchmarks about the different project achievements at the planning stage, so that you can always compare these benchmarks with your actual progress of the project, so that you can have the idea that how well you are going with respect to a particular project. So this is the importance of planning, and again the project managers and the operation managers should give the due importance to this very first but most important stage of project management. So students, as I discussed that these are the different processes or steps related to the project life cycle. That is, we'll have to initiate the process after the selection of the proper project. Then again there are the different planning activities, and after the planning activities you have to execute the different process, and during the planning and execution activities there should be the controlling process in order to find out the deviation between the actual performance and the desired performance, and accordingly you can take the corrective actions in order to minimize this deviation. That is so important. And finally the project is to be closed down or terminated. So this is the example that how we actually carry out the project and what are the different stages which are involved in the project life cycle. Now students, what are the important project planning considerations? Usually it is the general perception among the different managers that project planning is only concerned with some of the techniques like PERT, CPM and Gantt charts. But it is again a misperception. Project planning is many more than that. The project planning is much wider activity with following key considerations, that is cost estimation and budgeting, technology strategies, scheduling, specifications of deliverables, resource usage estimation, delineation of the organization structure, information and control system design. So project planning is actually the name of so many activities, and all these activities are as important as PERT, CPM and Gantt charts. Now project planning should always be able to have the different cost estimates, then different budgeting activities. Then it can always be involved in the efficient utilization of the resources. That is, how the different organization resources can be effectively and efficiently utilized in future while you are carrying out the different project. Then again students, the organization structure is so important when you are carrying out the different projects, and you will have to have a sort of structure within the organization which can always be helpful in the achievement of the objectives of the project. So project planning involves all of these activities actually. Then students, again, project control and evaluation is as important as the project planning, and what we usually do in this controlling and evaluation, we find out the different discrepancies which are usually referred as variances. And if you recall your lecture about the managing quality, I told you that variance is something which is the enemy of management. You know, whenever there is more variation of something, that will not be liked by the different managers. So these discrepancies are actually the variations, and we are always interested to find out these discrepancies and the variances. And then again, we are always interested to find out the methods that how we can improve these discrepancies and variance. The acceptable levels of variance should be determined at the outset of the project. So this project planning and evaluation helps us to find out the limits within which we can operate a particular project. Then controlling also focus on the details of what is occurring in the project, whereas evaluation is more concerned with the big picture. So evaluation is broader in scope, and it actually involves the examination and evaluation of the overall project after the project is being ended. And we can also say that project evaluation is a one-time activity which is actually done at the end of the project, while the project controlling is an ongoing activity, and we can always periodically do that project controlling. Controlling activities are the responsibility of the project manager, while the evaluations are typically carried out by an individual or group not directly working on the project. So that is another difference between the project controlling and project evaluation, that the project controlling is actually the responsibility of the project manager, and it is a sort of continuous process which has to be carried out throughout the life time of the project. But the project evaluation is actually a one-time activity which should be carried out by some independent party, so that they can give their fair opinion about the health of that project. So students, project manager is the key person who is basically responsible for the project from cradle to grave. So he is actually responsible for each and every aspect of the project, right from the start of the project till the termination of the particular project. So this person will take the responsibility for the planning, implementation, and then finally the completion of the project. The project manager can be chosen and installed as soon as the project is selected for funding or at any earlier point. Okay students, what happens in most of the projects that you start the project, and during that project time you are going to select the different project managers. With the wrong approach, the project manager should be selected and should be involved right from the conception and the selection stage of the project. So it is very important. Project manager is chosen late in the project life cycle, usually to replace another project manager. So again, this is a misperception, and the project manager should always be involved right from the first stage of the project life cycle. The project manager's first set of tasks is typically to prepare a preliminary budget and schedule to help the select people to serve on the project team, and to get to know the client to make sure the proper facilities are available. So all these are the different responsibilities of the project manager, and the project manager's job is not so simple. As I told you, that he is responsible for all the activities right from the start of the project till the end of the project, and he is responsible for that scheduling, he is responsible for planning, he is responsible for controlling and taking the corrective actions about the different projects, and most importantly, he is responsible for the efficient and effective utilization of the different resources. So the project manager's job is not so simple. Let's discuss some of the responsibilities of the project manager. He is responsible to complete the project within time, within budget, and according to specification. That is, again, to complete the project within the triple constraints. He should act as an intermediary between the top management and project team. So he should serve as a bridge between the top management and the project team. Then he should obtain the feedback for the learning lessons. He should train and educate the different project staff. So students, these are some of the important responsibilities of the project. Now these are some of the characteristics of the project manager: that he should be a mature person, that is experienced person. He should be calm, and he should be handle the different situations. He should handle the different conflicts that may occur during the project lifetime, and he should be aggressive person. He should be having the ability to take the very important decisions. He should always have the good terms with the top management, and that is a very important point for the project success. Most importantly, the project manager should be a journalist. He should not be, or may not be, a specialist, but he should be journalist. He should know something of everything, you know. He should know about the marketing, operations, the quality, technical things, administrative things, interpersonal skills. He should not be specialist in any one of these, but he should know some of the all of these things. So he is actually a journalist. He should have the technical and administrative capabilities. He should be a sensitive person, sensitive in the sense that he should be able to identify and solve the particular problems which may occur during the lifetime of the project. Then he should be able that how to deal with the people and how to motivate the people in order to achieve the different project objectives. Again, he should be a good leader, and he should have the inspiring capability to achieve the predetermined objectives of the project. He should always be aware of the different ethics principles, so that he should be able to create an environment within the organization which is ethical and which is also good for the achievement of the project objectives. So these are some of the characteristics of the project manager. Let's discuss some of the differences between functional manager and the project manager. Functional manager is in charge of one of the firm's functional departments like marketing, quality control, or finance. Such department heads are usually specialists in the areas they manage. So students, functional managers are actually the specialist, and he should know about the details of their own field, but project manager should be a generalist. He should know about something of everything, and he may not be a specialist in a particular field, but he must aware of all of these fields. Functional managers are analytically oriented, and they know something of the details of each operation for which they are responsible. They know how to analyze and attack a problem, so the detailed and in-depth problem analysis is the responsibility of the functional manager, not the project manager. A project manager, by contrast, is usually a generalist with a wide background of experience and knowledge. A project manager must oversee many functional areas, so he should be a sort of generalist, having the knowledge of different fields. May not be the in-depth knowledge, but some knowledge should always be there. Project manager has an ability to put many pieces of tasks together to form a coherent whole. So that is very important. He should have a synergetic environment within the organization, and that is the responsibility of the project manager actually. Project manager must be more skilled at synthesis. Functional managers must be more skilled at analysis. So analyzing a particular problem is the responsibility of the functional manager, not the project manager. Functional manager uses the analytical approach, and the project manager uses the systems approach. So the project manager is actually responsible for the running of the different projects like a system in which everything is being connected with every other thing. So that is very important, and this is a way we can differentiate between the functional managers and project managers. So students, let's discuss the different types of project organizations. One of the type is functional organization. In this type of organization, project is made a part of one of the functional division of the firm. Now what happens in some of the organizations, that the project is being made a part of any of the functional department of the organization, and that particular department is actually responsible for carrying out the particular project. Now there are some advantages as well as disadvantages for these type of organizations. For these functional organizations, there will be the maximum flexibility in the use of the staff, because you know that the organization already have the staff in the different functional departments, so they can always be flexible for the utilization of their staff, which is already been there in the organization. Individual experts can be utilized by many different projects. Specialists in the division can be grouped to share knowledge and experience. Then the functional division contains the normal path of advancement for the individuals whose expertise is in the functional area. So students, these are some of the advantages of functional organizations. There are some disadvantages as well. Client is not the focus of activity and concern. Now this is a very important point, that in most of the functional organizations, the client may not get the due importance, which is so important in project management, because the different functions are already working in their respective environments, and when the project is being made the part of some of the department, then you know that department may have the dual responsibility, and they may not 100% focus on the requirements of the clients. Functional division tends to be oriented towards the activities particular to its function. So this is the point, that they are more oriented sometimes towards their original functions, and they may not give due importance to the projects and the requirements of their clients. So this is one of the disadvantages of functional organizations. Occasionally in the functionally organized projects, no individual is given full responsibility for the project. Students, this is again a very important point. You know, when the project is made the part of some department, there may be the department head, and again at the same time there may be the project manager or project head. So the responsibilities is being divided among these two different bosses, and in management sometimes we say whenever there are two bosses there will be the clash, and that is always not good. So this is also a problem in case of functional organizations. Response to the client needs is slow and arduous, as we have already discussed it, that they may not have give the due importance to their client requirements. Project issues that are directly within the interest area of the functional home may be dealt with carefully, but those outside normal interest areas may be given short shift, if not totally ignored. So the functional managers or the related staff may be more concerned with their functional activities rather than the project oriented activities. motivation of the people assigned to the project tends to be weak, so there may be less motivation due to the division of the different responsibilities within the functions as well as with respect to the projects. So these are some of the disadvantages of functional organizations. Another type of the project organization is the pure project organization. The project is separated from the rest of the parent system. So this is a type of project system in which the project actually becomes a self-contained unit with its own technical staff, with its own administration, and tied to the parent department as well. And there are some advantages of these pure project organizations. That is, the project manager has full line authority over the project. So that was not the case with respect to that functional organizations, in which the responsibility was divided among the functional managers as well as the project managers. But in this particular case, all the responsibilities are and the authorities are being given to the project manager. So this is the example, students, for the pure project organizations, that there may be the different projects which may have the different departments, and these projects may work under the different program managers. So all the different projects have the different departments. You can see from this diagram. In the pure project organizations, again, the lines of communications are shortened and project manager communicates directly with senior corporate management. So there is always improvement in communication in these type of organizations. Again, unity of command helps the improvement in communication, and authority is centralized, and the ability to make swift decisions is greatly enhanced, again, in the pure project organizations. So students, these are some of the benefits of pure project organizations. Again, there may be some disadvantages as well. When the parent organization takes on several projects, it is common for each one to be fully staffed. This can lead to considerable duplication of efforts. Now again, students, this is a very important point, that in the pure project organizations, every project have its own different departments. So there may be the different duplication of efforts, and again, the different organizational resources may not be optimally utilized. So this is a very important point which should be noted in that particular case of pure project organization. Then project manager may stockpile the equipment and technical assistance in order to be certain that it will be available when needed. So that piling of the stock may also be a sort of disadvantage in case of pure project organization. Then pure project groups seem to foster inconsistency in the way in which policies and procedures are carried out. So students, these are some of the disadvantages of pure project organizations. Then there are some matrix organizations, and matrix organizations actually have the characteristics of some of the pure project organizations and some of the characteristics of functional organizations. So actually the functional organization and the pure project organization are the two extremes, and in between are the matrix organizations, which have the characteristics of both of the functional organization as well as the pure project organizations. This is an example of the matrix organization. You can see that under the program managers, the different project managers are working, and again these project managers can have the main power from the different departments of the parent organization. So these type of organizations, that is the matrix organizations, have the characteristics of both of the pure project organization as well as the functional organizations. These are some of the advantages of matrix organizations. That is, the project is the point of emphasis. Project manager takes the responsibilities for managing the project, for bringing it in time, within cost, and according to the specification. So students, all the advantages of the pure project organization and the functional organization may be there in these matrix organizations. There may be the different disadvantages as well, like the movement of the resources from the project to project in order to satisfy the several schedules may foster the political infighting among the several project managers. Now what happens in these sort of organizations, that when the different project managers are working under the different organizations, they start fighting with each other for the acquiring the different resources of the organization. So this is a situation which is which can be a sort of conflict among the different project managers. Then again, for strong matrices, problems associated with shutting down a project are almost as severe as those in pure project organizations. So when the project is to be shut down or terminated, it may be a problem that how the different resources of that particular project will be distributed, whether these resources will be distributed to the other projects, or these resources will be taken by the parent organization. So again, there may be a sort of dispute. Division of authority and responsibility inherent in matrix management is complex. So again, it is not always easy to assign the authority and responsibility within the matrix organizations. Students, let's discuss about the importance and benefits of the project management. Now again, one of the most important point related to the project management is that it makes the investment activity economically viable, technically sound, financially profitable, managerially efficient, socially acceptable, and institutionally desirable. So it is a very important point for the projects that it will always ensure a particular investment activity feasible with respect to all of these important parameters. Then it aims at achieving specific goals and objectives. Then it aims to complete the investment activity within the triple constraints, as we have already discussed, that is within time, within budget, and according to the specification. These are the most important parameters which are to be achieved in the project management. Then the project management is essential for complex project needs, coordination of multiple people, multiple resources, multiple tasks, and multiple decision points. Now students, this point is again very important. As I told you that project management is not a very simple thing, and also the responsibilities of the project manager are not so simple, and he will have to have a lot of effort in order to coordinate among the different people, among the different resources, and among the different tasks. And again, he will have to have the ability to make the multiple decisions at the different decision points. So in that sense, if we have more coordination in that project management, it will always be helpful in achieving the predetermined objectives of the project. Then project management provides a means for solving the different problems. Again, as I discussed, that one of the important parameter of any project is that it should be able to achieve the predetermined quality. That is, every project should be able to meet the customer requirements. So again, due to this focus on quality as its important constraint, the project management always helps to increase the customer satisfaction and quality. Project management allows people to make good company decisions. It ensures better return on investment. Now this is again a very important point, students. All the activities of the project management, if these activities are well coordinated and well managed, it will always ensure the increase in profitability for the organization for that particular project, as well as it will ensure a better return on your investment. Project management will provide better control of scope changes. So again, students, I told you about those three parameters, and whenever we want to have a change in the scope of the project, we'll have to have a trade-off between those triple constraints, that is time, budget, that is cost, and the specification of the project. So these three parameters helps us to control the scope of the project. Project management makes the organization more efficient and effective through better organizational behavior principles. Now again, students, this point is so important that project manager should have the leadership abilities and inspiring abilities, so that they can be able to motivate the people towards the right direction which they want to achieve. So they will have to have a sort of behavioral principles to be implemented within the organization, so that their project objectives can be optimally achieved. Okay, let's discuss some of the causes of the project failures. That what are the important causes why the projects fail actually. The customer's conditions of the satisfaction have not been negotiated. Now this is again very important. It is not always a good strategy that you always accept each and everything of your client. You should always have a sort of negotiation that what can be achieved and what cannot be achieved. So it is very important to have a sort of negotiation with your clients so that you may not have problems in future. And most of the projects fail due to this weak negotiation at the start of the project. Then the project no longer has a high priority. Again, as I discussed with you about the functional organizations, that the project may not sometime be the top priority for the organization, and their priority is actually being divided. So this may be the reason for the failure of the project. Then again, if there are two bosses or no one seems to be in charge, that may be a problem for the achievement of the project objectives. Sometimes this schedule is too optimistic, and we have so ideal parameters related to the cost, time, and especially the quality that may not be possible in the normal conditions. So the project manager should not be too much optimistic, but he should be realistic that what project objectives they can achieve and they will have to achieve. The project plan is not used to manage the project. Again, students, I told you that project planning is the very important stage of any of the project life cycle. So if that stage is not properly being examined, then again that may be a cause for the project failure. So important is the project planning. Sufficient resources have not been committed. Again, students, if the resources are not being provided and optimally utilized, then the project objectives may not be achieved. Project status is not monitored against the plan. As I told you that at the time of project planning, it is always important to make the different benchmarks in order to compare your future progress with these benchmarks, so that you may have the idea that in what direction you are going. So if you are not doing that, that may be the cause of project failure. No formal communication plan is in place. A good communication is so important for the success of any of the project. So if there is no formal and good communication plan is there, that again may be the cause of the project failure. The project has lost sight of its original goals. Every project should always have the desired accomplishments to be achieved, and again if you are getting lost out of these original goals, that may be the cause of project failure. The last but the most important points, students, there is no change management process in place. Again, as I told you that project management is not the set of the simple activities, and this is not the very simple, and you'll have to apply the different change management practices throughout the life cycle of the project, so that you will be able to deal with the different changing environment accordingly. So this flexibility in responding to the changing environment and having a particular sort of change management process within the project, this is so important for the achievement of the project objectives. So if there is no change management process in place in the project, then that may be the cause of project failure. We will discuss the framework of PERT CPM. Then we will also discuss the different terminologies which are being used in PERT CPM method. Then we will do some examples that how we can draw the network, that is actually the interconnection between the different activities of the project. Then we will also have the idea that how we can calculate the expected time of the completion of the project. And after drawing the network and after the calculation of the expected time for the project completion, we will be able to identify the critical path. So I will tell you that how we can identify this critical path. Then we will discuss some important approaches related to project management, that is Gantt chart, resource loading, resource leveling. Some other approaches which are important in project management, these are work breakdown structures and linear responsibility charts. So we will also have a brief discussion over these important concepts of project management. So students, let's start our today's topic, that is PERT and CPM. PERT is the program evaluation and review technique, and CPM is the critical path method. These are the two of the most widely used techniques for planning and coordinating the large scale projects. So basically students, PERT and CPM is a planning tool actually, which helps us in drawing a sort of network for the different activities of the project. And by using the PERT or CPM, managers are able to obtain a graphical display of the project activities. Now, this was the network I was talking about, that after using this particular technique of PERT CPM, we will be able to draw all the activities of the project and their interconnection in the form of a graph and in the form of a network. And then this network will guide us to find out the estimate of how long the project will take for its completion, and we will have an indication of which activities are most critical. So after identifying the time period of the project, we will also be able to identify that what are the most critical activities for the project. And the critical activities for the projects are actually those activities that if there is any delay in any of these critical activity, then there will be a delay in the whole of the project. So important are these critical activities. So this method will also give an indication of how long an activity can be delayed without delaying the project. So after all of this method, we will have the idea that how much we can delay a particular activity, so that our total project time period may not be increased. For proceeding with PERT CPM, following common 6 points have to be followed. Students, these are the very important points, and we'll also follow these important points when we are going to draw the PERT network diagram. First of all, we have to define the project with significant activities or tasks. Now this is a very important step which the project managers and the operation managers will have to follow, that they will have to define the different project activities and their tasks, and also as a second point, they should have a relationship, that how all of these activities are interconnected with each other. So it is very important to identify the different activities and tasks of the project, and then what sort of relationship exists among these different activities. Then after identifying this relationship among the different activities, we will be able to draw the network which will have an interconnection of all of these activities. Then what we will do, we will assign the time or cost estimates to each of the activity. Then we will compute the critical path, and then we can always use this network to plan, schedule, monitor and control the project. So these are the different points which we will be able to achieve after that PERT CPM technique. Students, before we start solving some of the problems related to PERT CPM, let's have a brief review about the different terminologies which are used in PERT network. Now PERT, again, as I told you, that it is a technique of planning, scheduling and controlling the activities of a project, and it is abbreviated for program evaluation review technique. Then what is activity? Activity is actually a specific or set of tasks required by the project, and sometimes we can also define the activity as the actions taken to accomplish a task. which consumes time and other organizational resources. And we generally denote the different activities of the project by arrows. So it is very important that we denote the different activities of the project by arrows when we draw the different activities in the form of our network diagram. Next one is the event. The outcome of one or more activities is said to be event, and we can also say that event is the starting and ending point of an activity. And again, it is a statement of accomplished task from which another activity starts, and events are generally represented by the circles, and sometimes we also call these circles as nodes. The network. Network is the combination of all the activities and events, and it is actually a systematic diagram which shows the logical sequence and interrelationship between different events and activities of the project. Then after drawing the network, we identify the different paths for the completion of the project. And what is path? So path is the series of connected activities or events. Then critical path. We may have the different paths when we draw that particular network, and then we'll have to identify the critical path. Critical path is actually the longest path, and it is the path which has longest total duration of the project, and any delay in this particular path will delay the project. Actually, the purpose of identifying the critical path is to identify the critical activities, and the critical activities are those activities of the project that any delay in these particular critical activities will delay the project. So by identifying the critical path, we can have the idea that what are the most critical activities for our project. Then again, students, slack, or we can say float, it is the allowable slippage for a path. It means that what is the allowable time period between the two different activities, so that our project is not being delayed. So this allowable slippage for the time period is generally referred as slack. So students, these are some of the terminologies we generally use for drawing the PERT network diagram. Now this is a simple project network diagram. You can see that the different events are denoted by the circles, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. You can see that there are 6 events. As I told you, that event is defined as the starting or ending point of an activity. So students, you can see that this is the starting point of the project, and this is the first event. Now the different activities are denoted by arrows. Now this is the activity, that is locate facility, and this is another activity, that is interviewing, and this is the event which is represented in the form of circle, and it is numbered as 2 and 3. So this is a sort of a network diagram, and this is the ending event of this network diagram. This one was the starting event, and this one is the ending event, and you can see that how these different activities are interlinked with each other. Now there are some very important points which you should have been noted at this particular diagram. Now you can see that this activity, that is locate facilities and interviewing, these are termed as the starting activities. We can always start both of these activities at the same time. Now you see that this activity is being ended at this particular event. So after completing this particular activity, what we can do, we can immediately start this activity and this activity. Similarly, after completing this interviewing activity, we can immediately start hire and training activity. And again, after this hiring and training and remodel and furniture setup activities are completed, then we will be able to start this move-in activity. So in this way, you should have the idea that what is a particular activity and what is the preceding activity for that particular activity, and what is the sort of relationship among all of these activities. So this is just a simple example of a network diagram. Now students, again, if you see this particular activity relationship, now in this activity relationship you can see that the activity C cannot be started unless both of the activities A and B are completed. Now this is again very important. The activity A and activity B will be completed at this point, that is the event. Only then the activity C will be started, and activity C cannot be started until both of the activities A and B are being ended. So this shows the interrelationship between the different activities. Similarly, in this particular diagram you can see that after the completion of the activity A, we can start both of the activity B and activity C. So this is way how the different activities are related, and how we will have to show this relationship in the form of this diagram. Now again students, if you see this particular diagram, it means that activity A and B should be completed at this particular point, but this is actually a wrong way to represent this sort of activities, because we don't show the starting activities in this particular way. What we can do, we can start from this starting event, because in this particular network diagram there should be a single starting activity. So we should not show these activities as shown in this particular diagram. We should show this relationship as shown in this particular diagram, that is, there is a single activity, that is, there is a single event which is the starting event, and you can see that activity A and activity B can be started at the same time. Now for the immediate and combined ending of both of the activities A and B, what we can do, we can do a sort of dummy activity, and as represented by this dotted lines. So this is a sort of dummy activity which we introduce ourselves in order to ending this particular activity A and B at the same event. So this is a way we can show these relationship between the activities A and B, and after this particular event you can start the activity C. So this way of relationship is not being recommended, and we always try to start from a single event. And again, if we have this sort of situation, we can always use that dummy activity for the interrelationships between the different activities. And dummy activity is a sort of activity which doesn't take any organizational resources, that is the time or cost, but it is generally being introduced for the representation purpose. Otherwise it may not have any sort of impact on this network or the project. Discuss that how we can draw this particular network diagram. You can see in this particular case we have 5 different activities, that is A, B, C, D and E. Now there is another column, that is the preceding activity. It means that what is the preceding activity of this particular activity. Now A, you can see in this particular table that activity A and B has no preceding activity. All the activities which have no preceding activities are actually our starting activities. Now again students, I am repeating, all the activities which do not have any preceding activity are actually the starting activities. So it means that we can start from the activity A and B. The activity C has the preceding activity A. It means when A will be completed, we can start the activity C. Similarly, activity D has the preceding activity B. It means when activity B is completed, we can start the activity D. Similarly, activity E has the preceding activities as C and D. It means both of C and D will be completed, then we will be able to start the activity E. Now the expected time for the completion of each of these activities is also given in this particular table. So let's discuss students that how we can draw the PERT diagram for this particular information. Now students, as I told you that generally the different events are represented by the different circles. Generally we use this circle in order to represent an event, and sometimes we can divide this circle into two halves. In the left part of this half, we generally write the name of the different events. Now suppose we have written 1, it means this is the first event, and again we can divide the second half, that is the second right half of this circle, into the two different halves, and again the upper half shows actually the earliest event time. This is EET, that is earliest event time, and the lower half of this circle is LET, that is latest event time. Now students, I just tell you about what is these earliest event time and latest event time, but first let's draw this per diagram. Now again students, you can see that activity A and B have no preceding activity, so it means we can start from the activity A and B. Now this is our starting event. This is our starting event. Now A and B are starting activities which can be started at the same time. So this is A activity, which is represented by this arrow, and this is the B activity, which is represented by this particular arrow. Let me write the time of each activity. Here you can see that the activity A has 10 in the corresponding column. It means that activity A will take 10 weeks or 10 days for completion. So you can always write that particular time here. Activity B time is 12 weeks or 12 days, that is 12 here. Now again students, if we number these halves, this is the first event, this is the second event, and this is the third event, again represented by the circles. Now again you can see that when activity A will be completed, we can start the activity C. Now this is the activity A which has been completed here at this event, so from here we can start the activity C. This is the activity C, and it has the time of 11, so we can write 11 here. Similarly students, you can see that the preceding activity of D is B, so it means when B is completed we can start the activity D. So this is B, it has been completed here, so it means we can start the activity D here. This is the activity D, and the time of the activity D is 16 weeks. You can always write that particular time here. Now students, when activity C and D both are completed, we can start the activity E. Activity E cannot be started unless both of the C and D are completed. So let me complete both of these activities at this particular event, and again this is the fourth event, and after completing the activity C and D, we can actually start the activity E. This is the activity E, and again this is our ending event, which is the event number 5. So students, this is the first starting event, and this is the ending event, that is event number 5. So now what we'll have to do, we will have to find out that EET and LET, that is earliest event time and latest event time, which I told you. Now students, we can make this half into further two halves. Now its upper half will start from 0, it will always be 0 for the starting activity. Now what we will do, we will add this 0 to this time, that is 10. So 0 plus 10 will be equal to 10. So we will write 10 here in this particular event. This is 10. Similarly, if we move in this particular direction, students, this is 0. 0 plus 12 will be 12. So we will write 12 in this upper part of this circle. This is 12. Now students, again this 10 plus 11 will be 21. Now I am writing this 21 out of this circle. Again, if we move in this particular direction, you can see 12 plus 16 will be 28. So I am again writing this 28 out of this circle. Now why I am writing these two values out of the circle? Because you can see that at this particular event, two of the activities are meeting at the same point. So what we will do in this particular case, that we will find out the total time for both of the paths, that is this one, and the greatest value we will write here in this particular cell. You can see that out of 21 and 28, 28 is the greatest. So we will write 28 here. And then again the time for activity E is 8. So 28 plus 8 will be 36. So we will write the 36. Now students, what actually we did, we have find out the earliest event time for all of our events. So this is the way we can find out the earliest event time. Now there is important point to be noted here, that whenever the different activities meet at this same common point, you will have to calculate the time for all of the different paths, and then you will have to write down the maximum value when we are going to compute the earliest event time. Now students, from here this particular event, we will move in the backward direction. This starting point, that is the lower half of this circle, now that will remain 36. That will start from the same point which is written here in this particular half. So we will start from 36. Now when we will move backward, what we will do, we will subtract this particular time which we add when we were going forward. So when we will go move backward, we will subtract this particular time. Now 36 minus 8 will become 28. So we will write 28 here. Again 28 minus 11, it will become 17. So let's write the 17 here. Similarly, 28 minus 16, this will become 12. So let me write 12 here. Now again students, we will subtract this particular time, that is 17 minus 10. This is equal to 7. So I'm writing that 7 outside of this circle. And again, if we move in this particular direction, this 12 minus 12 will be 0. Now again, why I have written both of these values out of the circle? Now we will select the minimum value, and we will write that minimum value in that particular half, that is 0 here. So when we will move backward for computing the latest event time, and at a point where the different activities meet each other, we will find out the relevant times, and then we will write down the minimum value in this particular half. So this is the way students we can draw this particular network diagram. And now we'll have to find out the critical path. And how we can find out the critical path? Critical path is that path where the earliest event time and latest event time are equal. So you can see students, at this particular event, this 0 is equal to 0. At this particular point, this 12 is equal to 12. So let me show this particular path with double arrow. And again, at this particular point, earliest event time and latest event time are equal. So let me again show this particular point with double arrow. And again, at this particular point, the latest event time and earliest event time are equal. So our critical path in this particular diagram is this one, that is B, D and E. B, D and E. So students, this is our critical path, and our critical activities are again B, D and E. It means if we have any delay in any of these activities, that is activity B, D or E, the whole of the project will be delayed. So that is very important to identify that what are those activities which are the critical activities, because the project manager now will have to give the due importance to these activities, because we cannot delay these activities. If these activities are delayed, the whole of the project will be delayed. So this is, students, how we draw this network diagram and how we find out the critical path. So students, in this way we can calculate the expected time by taking into account optimistic time, most probable time and pessimistic time for the completion of a particular activity. And again, this is a sort of a weighted average actually. You can see that the formula is T is equal to A plus 4M plus B over 6. It means we are giving 4 times importance or 4 times weightage to the most probable time with respect to the optimistic time and pessimistic time. So there may be the chance that in future there will be the normal conditions. So that's why we may have given this particular time, that is most probable time, the more importance. So accordingly, by finding out the particular importance or weightage for a particular time, you can always change this particular formula by assigning the relevant weights to each of this time. So students, let's discuss another example. Now suppose we have this illustration. We have the different activities for a project, that is A, B, C up to J, and the immediate predecessors, that is the preceding activities for all of these activities, are always given in this particular table. Then we are also being provided the different optimistic time, most probable time and pessimistic time. Now what we will have to do, we'll have to draw the PERT network diagram, but before that we'll have to calculate the expected time by using this information about optimistic time, most probable time and pessimistic time. So again students, how we can calculate that expected time, I just told you, we can always use that formula, that is T is equal to A plus 4M plus B over 6. You can see that this is the optimistic time, that is A, small a. This is the most probable time, which can be represented by small m, and this is the pessimistic time, which may be represented by small b. So all the values of small a, b and c are given for the respective activities. Now what we will have to do, we can use this formula T is equal to A plus 4M plus B divided by 6. Now in this particular column we have calculated that expected time. So how we will calculate the expected time for the activity A? This will be equal to 4 plus 4 into 5 plus the value of B, which is 12 divided by 6. So if we solve this particular value, it will become 6. Similarly, we can find out the expected time for all the different other activities. Now what we'll have to do, we'll have to draw that network diagram. Now students, again you can see in this table that A and B are the two activities which have no preceding activity. It means that A and B are starting activities. So how we will draw these particular activities? Now this is our starting event. These are our starting activities, that is A, and this is B. Now students, you can see that C, D and E, these are the three activities which have the preceding activity A. It means when activity A is completed, we can start these activities C, D and E at the same time. So let me complete this particular activity A at this particular event, and this is activity C, this is activity D, and this is activity E. Now students, you can see that when activity C is completed, we can start the activity F, because activity F has the preceding activity C. So let's complete the activity C and we can start the activity F. So here the activity C is completed, and then we can start the activity F. This is the activity F, and again the activity D is completed, then we can start the activity G. So this is the activity D. Let me complete this activity, and then we can start the activity G. This is the activity G. Then again students, when activity B and E are completed, we can start the activity H. It means activity H cannot be started unless the activities B and E are completed. So we'll have to first complete these activities B and E at the particular event. Now this is suppose the event, and these activities are being completed here, and then we can start the activity H. Now students, this is the activity H. Then again, when activity H is completed, we can start the activity I. So let's complete this activity H. Let activity H is completed at this particular point, and then we can start the activity I. Now suppose students, this is the activity I. Now again, in our last row, you can see that when activities F, G and I's are completed, we can start the activities J, because this activity J has these preceding activities F, G and I, and it means that we cannot start the activity J unless all of these activities F, G and I are completed. So let's complete all of these activities at this particular event. Now here this I activity is completed, here this G activity is completed, and here this F activity is completed, and now we will be able to start the activity J. Now there is no more activity, so we will end this particular diagram at this closing event. Now this is the closing event. Now students, this is the way to draw the network diagram. Now what we do, we can give the numbers to all of these events, again by initially dividing this circle into the two halves. This is event number 2, this is event number 3, this is 4. Hypothetically you can give the numbers 4, this is 5, this is 6, this is 7, and this is event number 8. So you can always give these numbering hypothetically. Now again students, let me write the expected time of each activity at their respective positions. The completion time or the expected time for activity A is computed as 6. So write 6 here. This is 6. The activity B has the expected time of 2. Activity C has the expected time of 3. Activity D, which we have just computed, is 5. Activity G has the expected time of 3. Activity H has the expected time of 4. This is 4. Activity I has the expected time of 2, and activity J has the expected time of 2. Activity F has the expected time of 2. So this is 2. Now what we will have to do, we will have to find out the earliest event time and latest event time for each of the event. Now again students, we will start from the upper portion of this right hand corner of the particular event, and we always start from 0. So it will be 0 here. Now again, well, we will move forward. What we will do, we will add the activity time to this particular time written here. So 0 plus 6 will be equal to 6. So let me write 6 here. And if we move in this particular direction, 0 plus 2, it will be 2. So this is the earliest event time for this particular event, that is 2. Now again students, 6 plus 3, it will be 9. So this is 9 here. And if we move in the other direction, it will become 6 plus 5, and it will be 11. So this is 11. And 2 plus 4, this is equal to 6, but we will not just move in this particular direction first. Now you can see students, you should always represent these activities by arrows. As we have already discussed that different activities are represented by the arrows. Now students, if we move in this particular direction, if that is 6 plus 2, it will become but let me write the expected time for activity E is 3. So students, if we move in this particular direction, this 6 plus 3 will be equal to 9. So let me write 9 outside of this circle. And if we move in this particular direction, 0 plus 2, it will be 2. So this is 2. Now why I have written this 9 and 2 outside of this circle? Because you can see that at this particular event, 2 activities are meeting each other. So you remember when we were solving the last question, I told you that if this is a sort of situation that 2 or more activities meet at a particular common point, what we will do, we will calculate the time for each of the path, and then we will write the maximum value at this particular point. So we will just ignore this particular value, and we will actually write 9 here, which is the maximum value. So this is 9 here. Now again students, let me repeat this particular point, because these 2 activities are meeting at this particular event. So what we will do, we will calculate the time separately for this path, that is 6 plus 3, 9, and separately for this path, that is 0 plus 2, 2. So whatever is the maximum value, we will write here in this particular circle. So in this way, we will calculate the earliest event time for these sort of events. Now again students, 9 plus 4, it will be equal to 13. So this is 13 here. Now students, again you can see at this particular event, there are 3 activities which are meeting at the common point, that is this one, and this one. Now what we will do, we will calculate the time for these separate paths, that is 9 plus 2, this is 11. So let me write outside 11 here. Then if we move in this particular direction, it will become 11 plus 3, 14. This is 14. And if we move from this particular direction, it will become 13 plus 2, that is 15. So what we will do, we will find out the maximum value out of these 3 numbers, and that is 15. So we will write 15 here. So this will be the earliest event time for this particular event. And again, if we move forward, then 15 plus 2 will become 17. So it will be 17 here. In this way, we will compute the earliest event time, and now we will have to compute the latest event time. And now students, again we will move in the backward direction, and while moving in the backward direction, again we will subtract the particular expected time Now we will start from this 17, and that will remain same as the earliest event time of our last event. And now 17 minus 2, it will become 15, so we will write 15 here. Now again, if we move in this particular direction, 15 minus 2, it will be 13, so 13 here. Again 15 minus 2, it will be again 13 here. Now 15 minus 3, it will be 12, so just write 12 here. Then again students, 13 minus 4 is 9, so let me write 9 here. Similarly 13 minus 3, this is equal to 10, so let me write 10 here. Now why we are writing 10 outside of this circle? Now you can see that at this particular event, if we move backward, now this particular activity, and this particular activity are meeting at the same common points. So what we will do, we will calculate the time for the different paths, and now in this particular case we will find out the minimum value, not the maximum value but the minimum value, because we are moving backward. Now students, for this particular path, 12 minus 5, it will be 7, so let me write 7 here. And again for this particular path, 9 minus 3 is equal to 6, so let me write 6 here. Now whatever is the minimum value, that is 6, we will write that minimum value here in this particular event. Now this is 6. Now students, again if we move backward, you can see 6 minus 6 is equal to 0. Let me write this 0 outside, and again 9 minus 2 is equal to 7, so 7 here. Now out of 0 and 7, what is the minimum value? That is 0, so we will write 0 here. So in this way, by moving backward, we will have to fill down the different latest event times that is being represented in the right lower corner of this event. Now students, we are able to find out the critical path, and I told you about the critical path. That critical path is that path at which both of the earliest event time and latest event times are equal. Now if you see these particular paths, you can see that at this particular path, now this is earliest event time and latest event time are equal. For this event, earliest event time, latest event time are equal. For this particular event, these times are equal. So this will be our critical path. Now it is represented by double arrow. Now this is our critical path, and what is the critical path? That is A to E to H to I and to J. And what is the total time period for this critical path? That is 17 days or 17 weeks. So we can always complete this project in 17 days. There is no other way we can reduce the time of the completion of this project. And another thing which this path is telling us, that is about the critical activities. Our critical activities for this particular projects are A, E, H, I and J. It means we cannot delay any of this activity, because if any of these critical activities are being delayed, the whole of your projects will be delayed. So this is the way, students, we compute that critical path, and finally we will be able to identify the different critical activities. And I also told you about the slack that was we discussed when we were discussing the different terminologies. Now actually slack is the difference of earliest event time and latest event time. Now you can see that the difference in the earliest event time and latest event time for this particular event is 4. Now this 4 is actually the slack. It means we can delay this activity up to the 4 days. If we delay this particular activity, your project will not be delayed because this particular activity is not in your critical path. So it is not the critical activity. So we can delay the non-critical activities up to a certain extent, but critical path activities cannot be delayed. So students, this is a similar example of the PERT diagram. You can see that there are the different activities. The activities descriptions are also being provided here, and the immediate predecessors, that is the immediate preceding activities, are also being provided in this particular table. Now again students, by using the similar method, again we can always be able to draw this network diagram. Again A and B are the starting activities because these activities do not have any preceding activity. Now this is the A and B, and this is C and D and E, which are being started after the activity A is completed. So this was actually the same diagram we have just computed. This is another example students. We have 5 different activities, that is overhaul machine 1, adjust machine 1, overhaul machine 2, adjust machine 2, and test system, that is the activity E, and the expected time of each of the activities is also being provided. Now in this particular case we'll have to find out the sequence of the different activities. Now you can see that the activity A and C can be your starting activities, and we can always start the overhauling of the machine 1 and overhauling of machine 2 at the same time. So activity A and C in this particular case can be your starting activities. After the overhauling, we can always adjust the machines. So again the adjustment may be started after the completion of these respective activities. And again after the B and D is completed, we can start the activity E. So in this way we can draw the network diagram for this particular project. And again I have just told you the procedure to calculate the earliest event time and latest event time, and how we can identify the critical path. So now you are being able to identify the critical path for this particular example. So again this is another example, and students, you should again draw this network diagram, and again you should practice that how we compute the earliest event time and latest event time, and which helps us to find out the critical path actually. This is another example, and again there are the different activities, and the immediate preceding activities information is also being provided. Again you can always draw the network diagram. Now this is a sort of network diagram for this particular example. This is another example. Again this is the network diagram for this particular example. And now students, again you can always find out the earliest event time, latest event time for all of these examples. In this particular diagram you can see that we have again introduced the dummy activity here at this particular point. Now again I told you that dummy activity is actually the activity which is just being introduced for the representation purpose, and it does not take any time or the other organizational resources. Now it is just being drawn here to show that the activity C and activity D will be completed at the same event, and then the activity G will be started. So in order to complete the activity D and C and F at the same point, we introduced this particular dummy activity. Now this activity, that is the dummy activity, is just introduced for the representation purpose. Now students, this is another example of the PERT diagram. You can see that there are the 3 activities A, B and C. A takes the 2 days or 2 hours, B activity takes 3 hours, C activity takes 5 hours, and again all of these 3 activities will meet at a common point. Now if we draw all of these activities and their expected time of completion in the form of this graph, now you can see we can take the days on the x-axis and the activity time on the y-axis. Now this is the activity A, which starts from the day 1 and it will be completed at day 2. As you can see that activity A is completed in 2 days, and that is being started right from the starting event. So this is the line for activity A. Again, this is the line for the activity B. This is the line for the activity C. And again, we can represent this information in the form of another graph, in which the workers information is also being provided. Now what this graph is showing us, this graph is showing us that at the very first day of the project we are using 8 workers, in second day we are using 6 workers, and in 4th day and 3 to 5th day we are using 4 workers. Now what actually I am telling you here in these graphs, that we are not leveling the different workers in order to complete the different activities. What is being happening here, in the first day you are using more workers, then in the next days you are using less workers. Now what we can do in this particular case, if we adjust the different activities, like if we make the adjustment that B is started after 2 days, so what will happen? We can have a sort of level for the utilization of the different workers. Now you can see that in this particular graph, the number of workers being used are at the same level. It means that the same workers will be used throughout the different activities of the project. Now this is the way, by using these graphs and concept, we can have a sort of resource leveling. This concept is actually known as resource leveling. Let me define this particular concept. One is the resource loading and the other one is the resource leveling. Resource loading describes the amount of individual resource an existing schedule requires during the specific time periods. The per CPM network technique is well suited for the job of generating the time phase resource requirements. Now class, again in this particular graph, what we have done, we have that resource loading, that we have shown the different resources, that what resources will be used to complete the different activities of the project. Now this is the example of resource loading. And then resource leveling. Resource leveling aims to minimize the period by period variations in resource loading by shifting the tasks within their slack allowances. Now students, you can see that I told you that this activity B is actually shifted up to the day 2 rather than starting at the very first day. Now if we have this shift for this particular activity B, your total project will not be delayed because of that slack or because of that difference between the earliest event time and latest event time. So in this, but by making this particular move, what we can do, we can level our resources, and especially the workers in this particular case. So this is the way we can load the different resources and we can level the different resources by using that concept of Gantt chart. Actually, this chart is actually known as the Gantt chart, which shows us that at what particular time period a particular activity is being started, and at what particular time period the different activities are being ended. So this chart is also known as Gantt chart. There are some other concepts, students, we used in project management. One is the work breakdown structure. Now what is the work breakdown structure? It pictures a project subdivided into the hierarchical units of tasks, subtasks and work packages. Now what we do in that work breakdown structure, we divide a complete task into the different levels of the task, that is the subtasks. The project management software actually creates the work breakdown structures automatically, given that the action plans have been input. So we can always use the different softwares to create the work breakdown structures. Work breakdown structures are used in the form of outlines with the first level tasks at the left and successive levels appropriately indented. Now let's discuss this particular concept with the help of this diagram. Now students, you can see that these are the different main activities or tasks Now all of these activities are being divided into the different tasks. Then again these tasks are divided further into the different tasks, and this particular activity is being divided into these much subtasks. Now this method is actually known as work breakdown structure, in which we just break down our work systems into the different tasks and then into the different subtasks. Now what is the purpose of these work breakdown structures? It helps us to find out that how each project contributes to the whole in terms of performance, responsibility, budget and schedule. Then list the vendors and subcontractors associated with the different tasks. So we can assign the different jobs related to these different subtasks with the help of that work breakdown structures. Then the documentation of all the parties have signed off on their various commitments to the projects. So again the different documents related to the different subtasks may be documented properly. Any specifications for any work package, establish account numbers, specify hardware, software to be used, and identify the resource needs. So actually students, this work breakdown structure helps us at the very first instant to divide the different tasks into the different levels of tasks, and then we can allocate the different resources to these different levels of tasks. So this is actually the basic purpose of this work breakdown structure, and through this work breakdown structure we actually can identify that how many resources are being used at the particular levels of the different tasks. So using this particular information from the action plan, list the task breakdown in successively final levels of detail. Continue until all the meaningful tasks or work packages have been identified, and each task can be individually planned, budgeted, scheduled, monitored and controlled. So this is a procedure for designing that work breakdown structure, that we will divide the different tasks into the subtasks, and then we can allocate the different resources to these different subtasks. For each work package, identify the data relevant to the work breakdown structure. List the personnel and the organizations responsible for each task. So again through this work breakdown structure we can allocate the different responsibilities to each and every levels of the task. Now again work breakdown structure is very helpful to construct a linear responsibility chart. This is another very important concept we use in project management, that helps actually to assign the different jobs to the different persons. And this linear responsibility chart again is being made with the help of that work breakdown structure. Now students, let's discuss this linear responsibility chart. You can see that we can use the different legends, like this triangle means responsibility. Now whenever we use this triangle, it means that will be the responsibility of a particular person. Similarly, this circle denotes the support. This square will indicate the notification, and this empty circle will show the approval. Now you can see this is an example of the simple linear responsibility chart. You can see that these are the different work breakdown structures. That is, a simple task is being divided into the subtasks, and the different officers responsible for these tasks are being written here in this particular row. Now students, you can see that we can always use these legends here in this particular table, so that if you hang this particular table at the any prominent place of your organization, then it will be very helpful for any worker within the organization, that who is responsible for what, and who is responsible for carrying out the different tasks, who is responsible for supporting this particular activity, who is responsible for the particular notification, and which officer is responsible for the approval of the particular task. So this is actually the purpose of that linear responsibility chart. There is another type of linear responsibility chart which is termed as simplified linear responsibility chart. This is the example of simplified linear responsibility chart. Now instead of using those symbols or legends, what we can use the different numericals in order to show the responsibility for the different tasks and the subtasks and the different persons to which these particular tasks are being assigned. So this is the example of simplified linear responsibility chart. There is another type of linear responsibility chart which is a verbal responsibility chart. So in this particular type of linear responsibility chart, again we write down the responsibilities before the different activities, tasks and subtasks, and before the different officers responsible for each of these tasks. So this is the example of verbal responsibility chart. So students, you see that how we can use that work breakdown structures and linear responsibility charts in order to assign the different responsibilities to the different persons just in the form of that